So we're going to be talking about stress and burnout in academia. And like I said before, Claudia will be covering some preventive measures, and she will be also equipping you with some tips and tools on what you can do to actually recover or get better if you cross that threshold towards burnout. But that's the second half of the presentation. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you a sense of just how bad the stress can get and has gotten in academia and what academic stressors look like. So I'm sure you'll be able to relate with them, but I'm going to do this by sharing some key findings and insights from the Cactus Mental Health Survey, which is a global survey on researcher mental health and well-being. I'm just going to skip this slide because you already met me. Okay, so you're all familiar with Cactus and what we do. So let's dive right into what the survey is about. So the Cactus Mental Health Survey, it mainly dealt with mental health, fulfillment, and well-being in academia. It's called Joy and Stress Triggers because we specifically wanted to focus on the highs and lows of academic life. So we wanted to explore what about their work brings researchers joy, what causes them immense stress, and what can universities and academic institutions do to support them better so that they can cope better. So it was launched on World Mental Health Day 2019. And despite the timing, it was bang in the middle of the pandemic, we still received an overwhelming response. So 13,000 researchers participated in this survey, and we have 13,000 unique responses, that means. So, and we have great representation across geographies, across academic career stages. So it's a fairly representative sample size and it's fairly large. So I feel like it's a landmark study in that it's helped us gauge what the researcher community globally thinks about academic stressors and what can be done to better the research work environment. Okay, so it is no secret that academic life is stressful, right? There's a million things you have to do, and regardless of how good you are with your work or how meticulously you work, there are certain issues and gaps in the system, systemic issues as we call them, that make it very difficult to succeed, right? And even when you do succeed, it's not without its challenges. So it doesn't help that there's so many different tasks, all of which are time and effort intensive, which are constantly competing for your attention. And it can get very overwhelming. Researchers are expected to do it all, and it can get extremely overwhelming and stressful, especially when, working so much, it causes researchers to compromise on things like sleep, their health, their well-being, self-care, and work-life balance. So I put these up here to just give you a sense of what I'm talking about in a more relatable way. And like I said, there are certain systemic issues within academia and within the academic system that function as stressors in the lives of researchers. So over the next couple of slides, here are some of the things that I want to focus on. And keep in mind that these are some of the existing issues that came out from the Cactus Mental Health Survey. And these are what researchers have identified as stressors that are really bogging them down. So we have pressure to publish, poor work-life balance, lack of job security and stability, hostile behaviors in the workplace, too many non-research responsibilities, and stigma surrounding mental health. So we'll get into a little more detail about all of these in the next couple of slides. Before we jump into things like academic stressors and work-related pressures, I wanted to focus on the good news first. It is called Joy and Stress Triggers. So let's focus on that joy aspect for a little bit. So the researchers who participated in the Cactus Mental Health Survey, they did have some positive things to say about their work and about their work environment. And I think it's really important to focus on these specific findings because it really brings out the passion and the dedication with which the researcher community works and everything that they put into it. So the point of a presentation like this is, despite all of these odds or despite all of the challenges that they have to face with, they still thrive. But the point is they shouldn't have to, researchers shouldn't have to, and imagine all of the things that they could do or how much better, how much more productive they could be, how much better they could feel if they didn't have all of these stressors bogging them down. So with that, let's focus on some of the good findings first. So 76% of our global sample agreed that their work gave them a sense of purpose or fulfillment. Half said that their work inspires them to reach their research goals. 61% agreed that they had plenty of opportunities to learn and grow. And 60% said that they look forward to their work every day and they enjoy the intellectual and creative challenges involved. Okay, so let's start with something broader, work environments in research. So the main indicator of mental health that we used in our survey was a question around how often researchers felt overwhelmed by their work situation. And as you can see, close to 40%, that's over 1/3 of the surveyed researchers, said that they felt overwhelmed by their work situation fairly or very often. 31% reported working more than 50 hours a week, and 13% reported working more than 60 hours a week. Keep in mind that while these numbers might seem small, think about it in terms of scale. We're talking about 13% of 13,000 researchers across the globe. So the numbers are alarming, no matter how small they might be. Unsurprisingly, researchers who had indicated that they worked longer hours, they were more likely to report feeling overwhelmed frequently. And PhD students, especially at the time of taking the survey, they were consistently likely to state that they felt overwhelmed fairly or very often as compared to any of the other academic roles that participated in the survey. We dug a little deeper to see if there were any variations across country. It was a global survey, right? So we wanted to know how it looks in various countries. And unfortunately, we found that there were several countries that were well above the global average. And as you can see, we have the UK, we have the US, we have Australia and Germany, some of which are almost the level of researchers feeling overwhelmed is almost double than the global average. Coming to work-related pressures, around 2/3, that is 65%, agreed that they were under tremendous pressure to publish papers, secure grants, and complete projects. 57% agreed that they were unsure about their job prospects and their chances of having a stable career. 46% agreed that they felt their research performance was not evaluated fairly in their organization. And 49%, that's almost half, agreed that they had too many non-research responsibilities at work. So things like teaching, grading papers, applying for grants, presenting at conferences, working on conference papers, things like that. We dug a little deeper again to see if there were any variations with regard to satisfaction with career progression. And as you can see, we found that researchers who were fairly, they were in less senior roles, relatively less senior roles. This tended to be a prominent problem for them. So we have PhD students, postdocs, and research fellows. One more work-related pressure that came up is whether or not the researchers, university, or where they worked, their workplace, whether or not they had strict policies to prevent, detect, or take action against unethical research or publication practices. And as you can see, we had only 11% strongly agree that their organization did have strict policies in this area. And again, if you look at it regionally, we can see a lot of differences with researchers in Africa, Central America, and South America. They were most likely to indicate a lack of strict policies in this area. And again, it's not surprising, but the respondents who reported a lack of institutional policies, they were also more likely to report feeling overwhelmed with their work situation frequently. So the reason I keep going back to that first finding of researchers feeling overwhelmed is because there's this assumption that if a researcher is feeling stressed or if a researcher is feeling anxious and overwhelmed, then it's on them. And the onus or the responsibility of coping immediately falls on them. But if there's so many systemic issues that are actually contributing to the stress in the first place, then it's not on the researcher, right? There's a need for everyone to come together to help the researcher cope, or at least to better the conditions in which they work. Coming to some findings around work-life balance and personal well-being. 43% of the global sample said that they didn't have sufficient time for hobbies, recreation, or other family and social activities. Approximately 40% disagreed that they get adequate sleep every night or that they're satisfied with their financial situation. And over 40% indicated that their organization did not have effective policies or facilities to help them achieve a good work-life balance. I think these are all very, very alarming and concerning numbers. And it's very important to note that we only had 8% of the entire 13,000 sample size say that their organization did have effective policies in this area to help them achieve a good work-life balance. Again, considering satisfaction with personal health and well-being, PhD students and postdoctoral researchers, they were much more likely to disagree as compared to those researchers in more senior roles. Coming to whether researchers feel safe, valued, and included in academia. One of the statements in our survey asked researchers whether they felt included in their organization and by their peers and supervisors, irrespective of factors like gender, ethnicity, or social background. And 16% of the respondents disagreed or strongly disagreed with this statement. Now you're probably wondering, why didn't I go with the bigger number, which was for the agree with this statement? Because 16% of 13,000 is a lot of people. And if no researcher should have to feel like this. And it really makes you wonder to see a number like this about whether they are able to convey to their supervisor or to their department that they're feeling this way, and whether there's someone who's actually looking to do something to help them. 52% indicated that they feel valued and respected by their supervisors, peers, and organizations. Again, I immediately think, what about the others? Why is the second half not feeling valued and respected? 37%, that is a very high proportion of researchers who were surveyed, they reported experiencing or that they had experienced some form of discrimination, harassment, or bullying at work. 36% indicated that their organization did not have strict policies around such behaviors at work. And 66% of those who agreed that their organization lacked strict policies in this area, they reported having experienced some form of bullying or discrimination at work. So if you look at this 66%, it's almost double the global average. Finally, coming to whether researchers feel comfortable seeking help and support. So we had two questions here. One asked researchers whether they would discuss work-based feelings of severe stress or anxiety with relevant people or authorities in their workplace. And we had half of the surveyed researchers say no to this question. The second question asked researchers if they had experienced stress or anxiety because of their work situation, and if they had, whether they had sought professional help. And this is again almost 2/3, 63% said no. For this particular question, I think it's very important to look into the reasons why they wouldn't seek professional help, or the key barriers to accessing workplace support. Some of the reasons were things like they felt that even though people would be able to empathize, they might not be able to help. Some of them were afraid of them coming across poorly to their colleagues if they spoke about something like this. There was also a fear of not being taken seriously, which I think really speaks to the amount of stigma associated with any conversation around mental health really in academia. And the final one, which is the most troubling, is that a lot of researchers who participated, they assumed that this was just part of normal academic life and that they had to just get used to it and get on with the research. I want to end my presentation by leaving you with these actual comments and suggestions that came from the researchers. One in particular, the one on the left here, which really strikes me, is one of the researchers, while talking about work-life balance or a lack of it, the researcher said it's not about free time, it's a lack of free energy. Who can do hobbies when you're physically, mentally, and emotionally drained? I'll just give you a couple of minutes to read the rest. Okay. So that is the end of my presentation. I hope you found it insightful. And we do have very comprehensive reports that we've put out, and I'll put the link in the chat. But yeah, thank you for listening to me, and over to you, Claudia.
Thank you, Andrea. for highlighting these very, very important key issues that some people are not aware of, especially the one with it's normal to work within the academia and just be very stressed out and push yourself until the edges of your physical limits. Thank you very much, Andrea. I will take over now. And I just want to, for starters, to make a delimitation between what we normally understand by stress and the transition to burnout. How is burnout different than stress? We all know that there is the good stress that motivates us, that keeps us alert, that enables us to feel alive when we are living exciting experiences, such as, you know, riding a roller coaster. And that is perfectly great because our bodies need a certain rush of adrenaline from time to time to feel okay. We also have the bad stress, the most common used term, when in a situation, in a given situation, we evaluate that we do not have enough resources to cope in that situation. Okay, so we say, okay, I'm not able to do this, I cannot do this. So we get stressed out. We are fearful, we are anxious, we start having pounding hearts, we start having stomach aches, and so on. But whenever these bad stress moments are work-related and they are long-term and with high frequency, we start talking about burnout. In other words, burnout is a stress that it's correlated to chronic work-related stressors or to chronic or long-term work-related situations. Burnout goes beyond simple stress because even though it involves the physical and mental exhaustion that many academics report about, so the bad stress response, it also comes with additional burden, such as intense negative feelings or attitude towards work and towards ourselves, such as a sort of a mental detachment. You don't enjoy your work anymore, even though it's your greatest passion, which is a paradox. Also, burnout comes with a sense, a deep sense of personal inefficacy. So every day, you start thinking, I'm not good enough, this isn't for me, I don't belong here, I don't know why I am here, I cannot find my place in the world. I'm incompetent, I am not able to do anything. And this sense of personal inefficacy is what makes you start having low performance at work. Contrary to popular belief, a burnout is not a personal failure. Actually, research says that most factors leading to burnout are work-related. The more unhealthy is your work environment, the likelier you are to experience burnout. And Andrea pointed out very, very good some of the work-related factors that lead to burnout. Long working hours and high demands, which are not normal, they're not healthy in the long run. When you're in the honeymoon phase, you're just starting your PhD, you're pumped up with passion and adrenaline, you kind of, in some ways, you are grateful that you can work long hours and that the people demand things from you. You feel valued, you feel like people need you. But on the long term, this attitude and this high demands lead to burnout. Job insecurity, as Andrea pointed out, lack of control or autonomy in the workplace, low workplace support, such as a bad relationship with your supervisor, or low support from your colleagues if they discriminate you based on your social background, just as Andrea said. Right, and all of the other factors that you find here were also derived from the Cactus Global Mental Health Survey, and this shows that there is a match between what people are reporting and what the literature is generally reporting. Right, so we know that most vulnerable people in the academic world regarding burnout are PhD students and early career researchers, which is what the Global Cactus Survey also showed. Now you might say, if I am ambitious and I want to have a great academic career, I will push through all of this, right? The bad part of such an attitude is that burnout has long-term consequences, which you cannot escape from. You can escape from them 1 year, 2 years, but in the long run, they will catch up on you, right? So among the consequences, we have emotional disorders, such as depression, such as anxiety, such as suicidal thoughts, right? We have health issues, such as cardiac disease or type 2 diabetes or insomnia. And the more they accumulate, the harder it is for a person to manage them. Substance misuse is also a common burnout consequence, and low performance and productivity. Even though on the short term, we can say working long hours helps me because I can read more, I can write more. On the long term, your performance will drop, your productivity will drop, because your brain and your body will say, I can't do this anymore. You have to help me help you. Okay, so it is this myth that working long hours and having high demands will help you, not in the long run. Okay, so considering the fact that burnout, that most factors leading to burnout are institutional-based factors, the prevention strategies, the most effective prevention strategies are also institution-based strategies. So I invite you, if you have any means of influencing, just take a step towards influencing your institution's policies regarding mental health. You should know that when an institution provides researchers or employers with autonomy, with the sense of belongingness, when an institution is preoccupied by showing good values and providing a sense of meaning and of positive emotions at the workplace, the employers will feel better and will perform better, even if they don't work 60 hours a week. Okay. If you don't have yet the possibility to influence your institution's policies regarding prevention or mental health, there are person-based strategies that you can attend to in order to make your life a bit easier within academia. And first of all, when you start acknowledging the fact that the bad stress is catching up on you, just take some time to understand what your stressors are. Okay, what triggers my bad stress response? Is it more demands? Is it the relationship with my supervisor? Is it the pressure to publish? And try to make sort of a hierarchy of these stressors: the high stressing situations, the low stressing situations, and the middle stressing situations. And after that, just take some time to reflect on your priorities, right? What is the most important thing for me to do in the following week? You will not be able to tackle all the stressors at once. You will not be able to resolve all the issues at once. So just focus on that particular stressor that is most important for you to tackle. And so invest your energy in that direction. Even though we would really, really like to be multitasking and efficient on a long period of time, research shows that this is not the case. And we can be most efficient when we prioritize accordingly to our own values and personal goals. Whenever you can, and regarding prevention strategies, I recommend you to think small, not big. So just think in terms of steps. It's true that perhaps you cannot work 8 hours a day. But be mindful that if today you worked 10 hours, perhaps tomorrow you can work 9.5 hours. And just allow yourself to work a half hour less in the days that you do not have to work more. Avoiding overtime is a key factor to avoiding burnout, because it also allows you to have supplementary energy to engage in other meaningful activities. When you spend your whole day working, it's natural that you will not have the energy or the time to practice a hobby or to call your loved ones at the end of the day. So whenever you can, just avoid massive overtime. Okay, so be mindful of the small steps you can do. Another thing important in preventing burnout and in recovering from it is to be aware of a healthy working discipline. Once every 50 minutes or 55 minutes, just take a 5-minute break. You don't have to do something extraordinary within the break. Just go out the window and take a look at the people, right? Even though it may be difficult and you cannot take frequent breaks, be mindful about their importance and just take them whenever your work schedule allows it. The social support is also a key strategy in prevention because it doesn't feed on your sense of personal inefficacy. And it shows you that other people are also going through the same stuff. I am not alone and I can vent towards them and perhaps even get some feedback or some ideas about strategies that might be working for me as well. Given the fact that most our work is intellectual, we need our brains to be in top shape. And our brains cannot be in top shape unless we take care of it, unless we take care of our body. It is not a luxury to have breakfast in the morning. It should be a healthy routine for us. Even though at the end of the day, you cannot exercise because you don't have the energy or you don't have the time, right? It's okay. Playing half an hour with your children is also exercise, right? From my experience, they are very good at keeping you active. Even if you cannot have a healthy diet overall, and you eat 3 bars of candies a day to keep that energy level pumping on the short term, just be mindful that perhaps today you could eat 2 bars of chocolate instead of 3, and you can replace drinking coffees with 1 glass of water more per day. So small things that you do for yourself can make a difference and can help you better regulate your daily activities. So again, my invitation is to think small, not big. Because when you think big and you cannot do all of the things that are listed here, you start feeling inadequate and like a failure. And this is not the way to go about it. You don't have to do big changes. You can start by doing 1 small change and be consistent with that 1 small change in every day that you can. So going forward to burnout, you realize that burnout is in your life when your body aches. You start having bodily pains that are not medically explicative. You start having concentration difficulties. Even though you are passionate about your work, you cannot concentrate at your work. You start to be irritable at work or with your loved ones, and you cannot find joy in your life anymore, right? And you feel depleted. You feel like even getting out of bed in the morning is too hard for you. Burnout is here also when you go to work, you look at your manuscript or at your PhD thesis, and you just don't feel the passion that you used to feel. Even though you're interested, even though this is the path that you chose, you just don't feel the joy that you used to feel. You start having sarcastic comments about your supervisor or about your work colleagues. You start having an overall negative attitude towards the work that you used to love. And this negative attitude sometimes can lead to criticism. You blame yourself for not being able to do all the things that you have done before. You blame yourself for having this negative attitude towards work. You blame yourself for not feeling your passion for work. Okay. And when you blame yourself, no wonder that takes even more of your energy and it is even harder to recover. Because mental processes such as self-blaming and high personal standards, many academics are perfectionistic, take away more of that energy. And it doesn't allow you to focus on your manuscript. Instead, you start focusing on blaming yourself. And of course, you feel useless, and that makes it even harder for you to break that barrier and connect with your passion again. You know, burnout is in your life when you grossly neglect your basic daily life activities, when you barely eat, when you barely sleep, when you push away your parents or your loved one who are trying to see what's wrong with you and who are willing to help you. So you are so tired that you start pushing people away from you. And I repeat, this is not your personal failure. Most likely you are working in an environment that it is not healthy and which kind of exploits your passion, your perfectionism, and your energy to do whatever is right and to have high performance. So perhaps some of the things that I have told so far are familiar to you. And the question is, okay, I am here. How can I recover? The recovery is sort of a journey with ups and downs, like everything in life that is connected to human behavior. There is no recipe that is universally available. There is no linear progress. You have to do A, B, C, and you'll be top notch in a day or two. No, it's a journey with ups and downs. So in the following minutes, I will be providing some ideas or some techniques that are proven to help you take one step away from burnout. So my invitation to you is just to note or write down the ideas that fit you best. Some of them will not be appropriate for you. Some of them, you cannot implement them right now, but some may be suitable for you. So if you leave this webinar with just one idea for your life, I think that we can say that we have done a pretty good job. First of all, try to mitigate the negative thoughts. When you are in burnout, you are so focused on what's going bad, on the fact that you cannot perform as well as you did before, that you forget all the things that you can still do right. Which is why I invite you to make a practice out of expressing gratitude. Expressing gratitude daily is what helps your brain detach from the negatives that are already there and see that you can still do a couple of things. Even if you cannot write that manuscript as you want, you can still help a colleague. You can still teach the students very well. So practicing gratitude will help you gain a little bit of mental energy, right? And this, even though it's a small thing, it can be very big on the long term if you practice it consistently. And it's a first step in helping you detach from the negatives in your mind, from the storm and the negative cycle that goes on and on in your mind. It also doesn't require a lot of energy because it takes you like 30 seconds at the end of the day to write on a note on your journal, for example, or on the post-it, something small that you are grateful for. I do this for 5 years now, and this is my gratitude box. And I write in it on small pieces of post-its, right? I just extracted one. Okay, so I write something I am grateful for at the end of each day. And start the sentence with, I am grateful for. Okay, I am grateful for having some sunlight today. Okay, I am grateful that my child kissed me goodnight. And you will see that in time, that negative circle will start being less strong in your head. Another thing is to ask yourself the how questions instead of the why questions. A lot of the times when we don't have the performance we want to have, we ask ourselves, Why can't I write this manuscript? Why can't I meet this deadline? Why can't I have a better supervisor, a more supportive supervisor? Why did I choose this PhD program? Our brain is essentially a problem-solving machine, right? So when we deliver our brain with the why questions, it will find motivations for why you are not able to do the things. And you keep yourself in a fixed mindset, which does not allow for solutions. When you consciously ask yourself the how-to questions, how can I become better in writing a manuscript? How can I organize my time more efficiently in order to have better performance at my work? How can I talk to my supervisor? How can, etc. When you orient your brain towards the how questions, it will provide you with solutions. And it will not seem that you are at a dead end and there's nothing to be done, right? And the how questions will also help you to gain a little bit of that mental energy that depletes you. You cannot do that unless you give yourself permission to be your friend. Think about it this way. If you would have a colleague that would be in the same situation you're in, and you would see that colleague that he doesn't sleep, he cries, he's very anxious, he thinks that his life does not make any sense. Do you go to that colleague and say, hey, you gotta buckle up. You're a coward for saying this, you're a coward for crying, you gotta buckle up because this is the situation, and if you want to perform, you just gotta do this, man. I think you're a coward for doing this. Most likely, if you care about that colleague, you will not treat him this way. But what we can observe in people dealing with burnout, or even in people very stressed, is that they start blaming themselves. They start criticizing themselves. And the internal critic can be the most damaging critic that we have. That's why I invite you to treat yourself as you would treat a friend, a loved one who would be down in the dump. So give yourself permission to be your friend and start treating yourself with a little bit of compassion. This is also a strategy that will give you a little bit of energy and a little bit of space. It doesn't solve your problems, that's true, but it will help you have a little bit more mental energy in order to be able afterwards to solve some of the problems you are dealing with. If you treat yourself as a friend, you will realize that it is okay to reach out and talk. Even if your supervisor still says, I don't care, you're burned out, we all are, get over it. It is still good that you send out the message towards him. One of the Nature's articles on mental health recently said that even supervisors struggle a lot with anxiety and insomnia and stress during the pandemic. So even if perhaps your supervisor doesn't struggle with all of this, you will still send out the message to him. And when more people start sending the same message, the institution will start acting, and the supervisor will start being more supportive of their PhD students. That's why it is so important to reach out and talk. Okay. As I previously said, burnout, it is not a personal failure or a sign of weak personality. Okay, so just keep this in mind the next time you start criticizing yourself. I am not strong enough, I am not cut out for this. Another thing that you can do, and again, my invitation is to think small. Just add some meaning to your life outside work. Even if your work is your greatest passion, it doesn't mean that you should spend 20 hours a day thinking about it or being immersed in it. Take a look at your family, at your loved ones. Take a look at spring, at Christmas holidays, and try to add some meaning to your life. If you can help others that are perhaps in an earlier career stage as you, and you like helping others, just help others. Of course, adding meaning to your own life means that you have the energy to go in other areas of your life, right? But if you don't have this energy, there's no problem. Just focus on the relationship with yourself. As I said earlier, many academics are perfectionistic people. They have really, really high performance standards, or they have people around them that have really high standards. And I want you to think that even though the institution may have unhealthier standards, even though your supervisor may have unhealthier standards, just take a break and think about your own healthy professional standards. And especially when you're an early career researcher, it is absolutely normal to not know everything. Nobody does. Okay, it's an illusion. And when you get stuck on writing that manuscript or that chapter on your PhD thesis, just acknowledge that writing something imperfect is better than not writing anything. Most of the times I hear colleagues or researchers say, okay, I have everything I need to start working, but the ideas just don't come out and I block. I've been sitting here for like 3 hours and I've only written half a paragraph, which sucks. Okay, what can I do? The first thing that you can do is to be a friend to yourself. And the second thing that you can do is to acknowledge that writing anything will lead to other ideas. So if you need to write about stress, just type in the word stress. Your brain, when you externalize what's in your head on a piece of paper, your brain will help you come up with other solutions. Regarding stress, what other word comes up to mind? Right? And you might say, well, stress theories, this study, Lazarus's studies, and then you can put those in there. And just slowly, starting from one word, from one branch, you can start expanding the writing. But you can do that when you allow yourself to be your own friend, and when you don't expect from yourself to have the perfect page from the beginning. Okay. So when you take the pressure off your brain, it will start providing you with ideas. Also, keep in mind that even if you make mistakes, we all make mistakes. And you can think of a mistake as a dreadful thing, or you can think it as a learning experience, right? Okay, so I made a mistake. My supervisor criticized me. I'm an early career researcher. I'm a PhD student. It's normal for me to make mistakes. And this is the way I can learn. Next time, I can do better. There is no point in faking a high professional standard when you're not even supposed to be there, because you're only at the beginning and you're still learning things. So allow yourself to be a beginner when you really are a beginner in academia. Even if perhaps other people just put this supplementary pressure on you. It is not adequate and it is not healthy for you, right? Okay, so we are running out of time, but I just want to mention from this slide that organizing your work is also important. It is not just about the relationship with yourself, with your mind and emotions. It is not just about the relationship with others. It is also about organization skills, right? So avoid distractions when working. Don't keep your phone on the same desk when you are working at something that is meaningful towards you. Turn off your notifications. Before working, check your body state. As I said, your brain cannot help you deliver an intellectual output if it hasn't slept enough, if it hasn't eaten, if it hasn't had enough water, right? So just do a body check before working. And if something is missing from your body, just give it to it, right? Just have an apple before going to work, okay? Then avoid all distractions so you can better concentrate. Whenever possible, stick to a working schedule, even if not every day. If you stick to a working schedule, a healthy working schedule of 3 days a week, it's still better than 0 days a week, right? Also, I would encourage you to make a list with the people you can say no to. A lot of times, when you work in the academia, you receive a lot of mails or a lot of urgent emails that are actually not urgent. Make a list with the people you can say no to, with the requests you can say no to during a day. And also during a day, just decide what is that one person or that one request that you cannot refuse. Obviously, you cannot attend to all the requests. So just prioritize which people you cannot say no to today, or which requests you cannot say no to today, and which requests you can say no to. Because you are not, your main duty is towards your own professional goals, not towards other people's professional goals. Okay, so just think about it. These ideas that I have provided you here can be implemented easier for some people and harder for other people. What I would encourage you to do if you cannot manage these states alone is to seek help, medical help if your body is suffering, or psychological counseling. Most likely your university has a counselor's office and you can access those services. And a psychological counselor can help you tailor your own recovery process, keeping in mind your specific stressors, your specific family situations, and your own mental and emotional resources. So I would dearly encourage you to take 1 hour a week for yourself, because in the long run, this is what taking care of yourself is what will help you achieve your work-related goals, better than just working until you're exhausted. Okay, so briefly, this is what I wanted to talk to you today. Right now, I invite you to write us in the chat or tell us if there is something that we covered today and that you can take for yourself, that you can implement in the following week in your life. Thank you again for listening. I look forward to hearing your ideas and what you can do for yourselves. And as a bonus, you will be receiving a handout summarizing what we have said here, and summarizing all of these strategies or ideas that you might implement. Additionally, the handout we will be offering you also contains some readings, some online short readings that you can consult, and some books that you can read whenever you have time. It is not necessary to read books if you don't have the time or the mental energy for it. But just take one step towards a healthier life and one step away from burnout. Okay, that's it. I will stop talking. I want to hear from you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Claudia, Andrea. That was lovely, and thank you, Andrea, for sharing so many insights and stresses what researchers go through. And thank you, Claudia, for sharing such great tips, which are practical in nature. Now, I will request and encourage if anyone has any questions, please do share in the chat. Claudia, few people have shared a question or two, or maybe an insight or two. Please do scan through the Q&A and share your points. One of the question, Claudia, which has come, is about managing supervisor, which tends to be quite a stressful for many researchers, because at the position and the power they have, it's difficult for them to handle, to say no, and and to figure out life around it. So that's my first question towards you and Andrea, that how we should handle that situation. What's the best way to go about it?
Okay. Yes, this is a very common concern for PhD students, how to handle the relationship with my supervisor. First of all, you need to be aware of your own personal limits. When you start a relationship with someone, even if that someone is in a position of authority, you can impose some limits in interacting with that person. You can say to that person, I can do this, this, and this. But if that person becomes abusive towards you and has so many demands, you can send out the message, I would really like to be able to handle these things, but I have these priorities. And when you talk to your supervisor about priorities, make sure that your priorities are somehow connected to his priorities for you. For example, you may have supervisors that want you to publish, right? So they expect their PhD students to publish, okay? And then you can say to your supervisor, I know it is important for you to publish. It is also my top priority, but I cannot make this my top priority if I have to prepare for 10 conferences and prepare for 10 classes or so. I will try, but most likely writing will not be my top priority, and this will result in a delay. Are you okay with this delay? Are you okay with this switch in priorities? And most likely he will say, perhaps he will say, I want you to do it all, right? But it is less likely for him to say that if you give him good arguments and if you show him that you want to do it. You want to do it everything, but you can't because nobody can actually. So just prioritize and relate your priorities to your supervisor's priorities, so that he can acknowledge that when he is burdening yourself with unrelated research tasks, the research will not be a priority. If he is okay with that, sure. But if he's not okay with that, it will be a message for him that, okay, this is a limit. He wants to focus on research. I cannot just keep popping things in his daily schedule. And even though it seems that supervisors don't understand what PhD students go through, they themselves went to grad school and they themselves probably went through the same thing. So even if it looks like they don't understand and they send out the message that you have to do it all, you can explain to them, I am doing my best to do it all. But as you know, perfectionism is an illusion, right? So I need to prioritize, and they will understand because they're academic people, right? Change is hard, but the key point here is just to set up some healthy limits interacting with your supervisor from the beginning. Do not let him think that you can do everything he asks you, because he will keep giving you things, right? You're excited, you want more. Some PhD students even require more. Hey, dear supervisor, I finished this. Can I have some more work to do? And of course, the supervisor keeps giving you. So just establish some limits from the beginning, healthy limits, right? Based on your priorities coupled with the supervisor's priorities. And in this sense, ask him, what is it that you expect from me as a PhD student? Just at the beginning of the collaboration. I really want to know what is it that you expect from me, so that I can know.
No.
Yes.
Excuse me. It's not easy always to ask supervisor because they get angry.
Yes, they can get angry, but if they
And
do
they'll simply kick you out of the project and hire someone else because they want results. This is the biggest problem of most of the supervisors. They want results and they have to submit to survive in the job. So if you don't say yes, boss, you are out.
Well, you can say yes to most things that connect to the results you are there to provide. But if you have tasks that are not related to those results, right, then he will acknowledge that he's asking you to practically detach yourself from what will help you to bring those results.
Hello.
And indeed, the job insecurity is a tough point, right? So he can kick you out of the program and replace you with someone else.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Mr.
Yes. Okay. When the professional work differs from your research interests, that is the research scholarship, how do we manage that?
I am not sure I understood this question. Perhaps if you could write it in the chat, or if someone else understood it, can help me.
Can your occupation interest is different from your scholarship research work?
Oh, so if your occupation interest is different from what you are researching in the university.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then you will not be able to find meaning within your research work.
Yeah.
All right. So if you don't have meaning, even if you can drag yourself to have some results on the short term, on the long term, you won't have those results. So it is a matter of deciding what is most important to you. Have meaning at work, or doing work that you are not really passionate about. If you don't have another choice and you have to do that work because you don't have, I don't know, financial resources, then consider doing that work for a limited period of time and just keep your eyes open for opportunities where you can actually work in accordance to your own interest, right? Sometimes in life, yeah, we do these compromises. We research things that we are not interested in. If this is really important for our work safety, sure, we can do it for, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but just keep your mind open towards opportunities that are consistent with your own interests and values.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
So we have a few questions. I'll quickly try to ask them, Claudia. So one question from Vilma is how to balance family life and work. Sometimes I experience writer's block. Is this sign of stress or a burnout?
Everybody in the academia experiences writer's block, right? And early career researchers more frequently. It can be, it is normal because you are at the beginning, right? So perhaps you need to acquire more skills. And if you start asking yourself how to resolve this, your brain will help you to provide ideas. What you can do is educate yourself towards how can you write more effectively. Stop beating yourself up for having this writer's block, because when you beat yourself up for it, it gets even worse, actually. Right. Being proficient in the language in which you have to write is also a strategy. So if, for example, you have to write in English and you're not proficient in English, just write in your own native language and then go to a translator, right? Or just have some English courses if you really want to write in English. And start small. Don't expect yourself to not have a writer's block. Just start small with words, with sentences that just pop up into your head, and externalize them towards a piece of paper or towards a Word document. And regarding work-life balance, I think that was also in the question. It's hard in academia to have this work-life balance, but perhaps you can have periods when you work more and periods when you work less. For example, the autumn, October, November, December are harsh months for academics, but during the summer you have perhaps an easier time and you can work less. And if your children request more time from you, you can say to them, okay, this week I can spend less time with you, but I will make up for it during the weekend, for example. The important thing is not to neglect creating a work-life balance, even if it's not 100% perfect balance in our life.
Right. Claudia, the other question is by Dr. Suman, how to concentrate better after facing a burnout?
How to
concentrate better after facing a burnout?
After facing a burnout, okay. So it depends on how your health state is. Perhaps after facing a burnout, you may have to get some medical treatment or vitamins or so on. Another thing, so you should check that with your doctor. Another thing is to start drinking more water, start oxygenating your brain by leaving the window open. Another thing is to start with small, simple things. When you want to concentrate on the big things and you will fail, this will make you fall down into the burnout loop. So start with small things and with things that have a clear ending, such as answering emails. Another thing that you can do is to start reading 1 page a day, for example, then 2 pages a day, and so on. So start small without having the idea that you need to do something wow, and then gradually increase your task workload as you are able to process more and more information. But you will not be able to do that unless you take care of your body first.
So Noor, you have a long question. I would request you to ask that question. Noor, are you there with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Claudia, or is it Claudia? Sorry, for the great content. So my question is, I'm just going to read it. I said that you talked about good and bad stresses. So in my own experience, I've experienced a rather, how I described it, different type of stress that is like a mixture of both good and bad stress. So for me, it kind of like lays in between those two, or as I said, is a combination of both. It's like when I want, there is this good stress that it pushes me to go start my work and finish it. So I am motivated about it, but there is also this, sometimes maybe my body is too tired and my brain is not focused. So I lack concentration. And so both brain and body are saying, okay, I'm not going to do it. So I was just wondering what you can say about this, if this is like anything, if there is something that we can do about this that is rather different than anything that you have recommended during the presentation.
I would invite you to conceptualize this state. It's called the honeymoon state. Is that state when you are so motivated in doing that you feel like you can climb up a mountain, but your body tells you you need to pull the brake, right? So what I would invite you to do is to sort of make a plan of your career objectives, like a long-term plan, a year plan, so that your brain can see that within a year or within a semester, you have time to plan all those activities that you want to do in 1 week. And I think that planning and visualizing your progress on a longer period of time might help you realize that you can still reach your goals, just that you don't have to reach them in 1 week because your body is already tired. And I think also a shift in the relationship that we have with our bodies. We take them for granted. We assume that if we want something, we just got to do it and it's enough. It's not enough. The physiological part is tied out with the psychological part, and you cannot break the link. So even if your psychological part is telling you, go do this, go do more and more and more, right? You also need to acknowledge that your body, your physiological part, is not kind of your slave. You cannot push it in the end. So I think that externalizing whatever you want to do and just plan it on a longer period of time might help you, might reassure you that you will get there, and you can be safe, you can be healthy too.
Thank you.
Claudia, another question by Quenlin. When do you recognize yourself more than suffering a burnout that you need to get help a mental health professional? What are the signs to be aware of?
Technically, you can go to a mental health professional even if you're not in burnout. Some people go to a mental health professional when they just feel a little bit stressed out. And if the earlier you go, the better it is, because the recovery process is faster, right? So you don't have to wait for the depletion to kick in, so you can seek mental help. Generally, whenever you think that you cannot deal with this on your own, you can ask for professional advice. Professional consult does not necessarily need to be a long-term psychotherapy process. You can just access 1 or 2 sessions, online sessions for coaching, if you can feel you don't handle stuff, or if you think that you do not manage time better. You don't have to wait to have low performance because you can't organize your time better to go to a mental health professional. If you identify some, let's say, weak points in your functioning, you can go to a counselor for 1 session or 2 and see whether they can improve your ability to work on your organization skills, for example. But you really have to go to a mental health professional when you start experiencing the burnout symptoms, the exhaustion, the physical and mental depletion, negative work attitudes and feelings of, and the negative self-evaluations, right? I think that would be a good time, a must.
So we're at the end of it. Last question by Hua Cheng. I have been in the academic field for a few years. I could be very efficiency in academic work because I'm focused. Too focused to ignore others, and lack of social skills led them to be bullying. Sometimes I ignore them, but always times they agitate me and cause a scene that can't undo. Although I know the best strategy is controlling my anger, but it's hard. Any advice for that?
From what I understand, the colleagues have bad attitude towards you, right? So they trigger you. And even if you work on your anger management skills, you are not tackling the root problem. So my question for you would be, is there anyone at your workplace you can talk about, with whom you can talk about regarding this topic? If it's a, I don't know, generalized attitude, it's not healthy. And perhaps you can talk about it with your supervisor or with other colleagues that go through the same thing, or with the university's counselor or with the dean. It's not that you want to punish others, but it is not healthy at the work environment for people to treat you this way. Ignoring them will send out the message that you're a victim. Okay, bursting and getting angry at them will send out the message, ha ha ha, we got you, right? So it's not okay. Even if you learn anger management strategies, it is not healthy on the long term to remain in this relationship. And personally, I would look for someone to talk to about this situation and, you know, expose it. And first of all, I would start with colleagues that experience the same treatment.